Hello and welcome to Yeshua Radio. This is Kingdom Stories. We just wrapped up Sukkot. We celebrated Sukkot in South Africa, in central South Africa, and the venue where we had it is owned by Torah observant people who believe in Yeshua, and they have a heart for evangelism, they have a heart for the kingdom. I had to introduce you to them. They have such an amazing testimony. I hope that you will enjoy it. Werner and Noleen, thank you so much for spending time with me today and sharing your story with me.
Hi, Andrea.
Hi.
Yeah, it's a privilege to be able to share our story. Yeah, Father's done a lot of work in these past few years, or past many years rather. And just to give testimony as to his glory is a privilege.
So tell us, did you grow up in Christian households? Did you grow up knowing Father, knowing Yeshua? I'd love to know.
You go first.
Okay. I grew up in a Christian home, a very loving home, a very secure home. And interestingly enough, Noleen, my wife, grew up in the same town, and we've known each other since when she was 6 and I was 7. We went to the same junior school together in the same class. But yes, she also grew up in a Christian home. She grew in a Lutheran home. And we both had a very solid Christian background foundation.
I think it would help to understand that we actually have a German background. So we were both brought up in very disciplined and hardworking homes, which I really appreciated, but quite religious and lots of traditions. It was quite a walk that Father took us on when he started introducing his ancient past to us.
Yeah, it actually started way back when we started home educating our children. Back in the 90s, we were one of the first home educating parents at the time. And part of the curriculum was actually studying the feasts. And we did it just very religiously, so to speak, not realizing, or academically rather, and not realizing the depth of it. But the more we learned about it, the more excited we became about it and realized, wow, there's some truth in there. And it is just a wonderful thing to be able to experience celebrating the feasts.
So how did you get onto the ancient paths? What instigated that in your lives?
It actually started way back when we started home educating our children back in the 90s.
We were one of those pioneer, strange people that educated their children at home. And part of our curriculum was to study the feasts and the tabernacle. So we started off as, okay, this is what we need to do for the curriculum. And we studied the feasts and celebrated them academically and did everything that the curriculum told us to do. I had 2 other friends that were home educating, and they were also very excited about the feast. We then started discovering the deeper meaning of the feast and realized this is not just an academic exercise. This is really a spiritual journey. And there's so much in the feasts that is so prophetic, so meaningful, and that it is something that we would like to learn more about and start including in our family life.
So how did you incorporate that in your family life?
First of all, it was just a matter of, okay, first child goes through that curriculum, the second one went through the curriculum, the third one went through the curriculum, but we did it all together. And then we realized we want to learn more about it. And we started to ask other people in the area whether they had celebrated the feasts. And then we came across a Bible study that actually they were practically celebrating them as a group. And we joined in with them for a few years. And then we had Bible studies and youth groups at our home. And we started sharing the joy of these feasts with the other people in our group. And they say, but we also want to learn about the feast. So it came to a point where we realized that what we were learning in our religious background was not feeding us spiritually. And we felt that Father said, we need to move out of the church, which we then did. But we continued with the Bible study. We continued reading up and learning about the feasts and celebrating them at home and with our Bible study group. And then in 2010, Father took us to Israel as a family, and he really established his Sabbaths and ancient paths into our family during that trip.
We booked our tickets, we packed our backpacks, and that's all we did. We arrived in Jerusalem on a Sabbath, on a Shabbat, not realizing that Jerusalem doesn't really operate on the Shabbat. And we quickly learned how things are done in Israel. And yeah, that was a wonderful journey, just experiencing his ways, the way he taught us and the way he guided us to certain places, met certain people. And that's where also we met Sarah and Martinel at the airport on the way back. We bumped into each other. We didn't know of each other. And that's where we made contact. And he was a really good Torah teacher. And he taught us many things that helped us in being at the place we are right now.
What year was that?
That was back in 2010. And yeah, since then, once leaving the church, we started keeping Shabbat. And obviously the feasts were wonderful. And since then, every feast is just more enjoyable and more meaningful. It's what we do here at eingedi. That was one of the commitments that our Father laid on my heart as to what I needed to do when we moved here, is to walk in his ways. Jeremiah 6 verse 16, the ancient paths, and walk in them. So that has been very instrumental in our walk since then, and is currently still, as we celebrated Sukkot here last week. Was a wonderful experience again.
We were very well established and happy and settled in Pietermaritzburg for all our married life, really. And our children are all still there, and grandchildren. And then in 2015, we realized that Father is at work with something, and he was asking Werner to resign from corporate life.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most difficult decisions. To be in the corporate world, have a steady job as a male in this country. And Father asked me to resign. I initially requested a retirement package, which wasn't granted. And then I actually resigned in faith, one of the most difficult decisions I've had to make. But I just felt Father was calling us out of where we were, extending our tent pegs in a place which finally we realized is eingedi, which was also quite a mission to really find out, Father, where do you want us? And it was for about 5 months where I had in faith resigned, had really no idea where we're going, but knew we were going out of the city. But where to? One of Noleen's requests to Abba was, please let it have a few hills, not just be a flat, plain country, but have a few surrounding hills, which eventually, when we did find this place and arrived here, realized how beautiful it is, yet how broken as well.
When we went to Israel in 2010, Father started to really connect us with people who could really teach us his ancient paths. He also gave us the name eingedi in Israel, at eingedi, which is near the Dead Sea. We had an incredible encounter with him there, and he did a work in our lives. And when we got back home in Pietermaritzburg, in the city, my youngest son just felt that Father told him that our home was called eingedi. And eingedi, if you've been there, it is a place of living water in the wilderness. That's where David hid from Saul when Saul wanted to kill him. And we saw those caves and everything there. And there in this absolute wilderness and desert, suddenly in this little valley, there are these rivers of living water. And it was as though Father said, I'm needing eingedis in this world. I'm needing places where people can come out of their desert and their wilderness and go to a place where there's living water. And because from eingedi, you actually look down the valley onto the Dead Sea, which is a big, beautiful blue expanse of water. But when you go close to it, it is dead. And it was as though Father said, the world is in your face and it looks so good, but when you go there, it is dead. And I want a place where people can withdraw from that and seek me and find the living water. And so that's what we named our place in Pietermaritzburg. And then when Father moved us here and he chose this place, honestly, we would not have looked in the Free State. We were quite happy in Natal. When we came here, we realized that name was actually meant for here, and we took the name board down the night before we moved. We took our name with us, and we knew this was going to be Engedi, the place of living water.
Interesting. When we left, we always name our vehicles after a name, sometimes a biblical one. And in this case, we traveled with Joshua, which was the name of our vehicle. And we traveled through Bethlehem across the Jordan River. And I just felt Father say to me, I need to pick up some stones in the river, in the Jordan River, which I then did and placed those as a memorial really at our entrance gate as a reminder of our exodus out of Egypt, so to speak, into the promised land. So appropriately, or Engedi's founding scripture is John 7 verse 38, being rivers of living water. And we here at Engedi have experienced that in so many ways, and so have many of our guests.
And interesting that the theme of Sukkot was living water.
Rivers of living water. It was, I said to Andrew, wow, that's our verse for here. But it was when we arrived here 8 years ago in November, was the first time we saw it. It was in the grip of an incredibly serious drought.
It was the worst in 75 years.
Yeah, very dry, and the dams were basically all empty. It was just, it didn't look great. And it had been quite run down by the previous owners.
The previous owners had won the lotto and had hence bought the property. And after 6 years of partying, the funds ran dry and they had to sell. When we had arrived and we'd seen it the first time, we hadn't realized the severity of the darkness of this place. And we soon realized that this land needs to be possessed for Abba's kingdom, and that darkness needs to be driven out and replaced with light. Yeah, it was a tough task, a tough call. And one of the first projects was to actually clear this place physically of rubble and alcohol bottles and you name it. So we had half a rugby field full of those alcohol bottles, which we then hired a TLB and 10 pairs of hands. And we just closed the donga with these bottles and covered it with the soil. So it was really a funeral, so to speak, of the first step of just physically cleaning the property, which was important. But likewise, just as important was to spiritually clean this property.
I think the important thing for us was it was a huge step of faith. It was as though Father's heart was crying over this land. And he realized there was so much unrighteousness in this land, and he wanted it to be possessed for his kingdom purposes. So before we came, that's what Werner had spoken about earlier on, before we moved, he did a deep work in us to prepare us, to humble us, and to come to a place where he made it quite clear what he expected of us when he took us to this new place, which we'd never seen before, when he took us through these trials. And he made it very clear that he wants to take us to a place where we will possess this place for his kingdom purposes. We are not to build our own kingdom here. He's taking us to a place where he would like his kingdom to be built and his ancient paths to be lived out, so that his children can come there and experience his kingdom being lived out in everyday life. We were still learning, but we learned very quickly. Father doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. So we did some on-site learning when we got here, because when we got here, we realized, okay, this land is spiritually, it needs to be cleaned physically and spiritually to make it into this place where his kingdom can operate. And he made it very clear from the start. I think it's Deuteronomy 8 or 9, where he speaks about, do not think it is because of your righteousness that I'm giving you this land. It is because of the unrighteousness that happened here that I have driven them off the land so that it can be possessed for my purposes. How did Joshua and them possess the land for kingdom purposes? And yeah, it was hard. I've never cried so much in my life, but he was faithful. He was with us all the way. And if we look at it now, 7.5 years later, we go, wow, Father, you have done an incredible work here in turning this land from a land of desert to a land of bountiful grasslands and beauty. A physical testimony of what he does. When he is at work in a place, you can physically just see the transformation.
Yeah, I think just a testimony. He is faithful and he provides, and we can truly trust and rely on him. It hasn't been easy, as Noleen said. There have been some very difficult days, many tears, and I always tease her with having 6 Jojo tanks here, and that's for her when things aren't too great. But also we've seen Father at work, and we've seen lives changed, and we've just seen this place transformed from this barren place of darkness to a beautiful place of light, where even the vegetation shows testimony to that.
We turned the place around by giving it a name which has a biblical meaning to it: Jericho Plains and Hebron Heights. And Father even sent an elderly man ready to come and lay out hiking trails for us, which is just incredible. And so we've got Jacob's Ladder, and we've got all sorts of biblical names. That is Mount Sinai, we've got a Mount Moriah, Ararat, Mount Ararat, we've got Noah's Ark even. So we really just placed the biblical names onto this place so that the enemy would get the idea this place belongs to Yahweh. Yeah. And we've also tried to bring in biblical meanings to the names of the houses, like High Cottage and Petra Hospital near Jaffa, where we stayed in Jerusalem at that time, just to turn this place around so that, just spiritually, the enemy would get the idea this place is now being turned around to a place that honors Yahweh and his principles. The first week we were here, we arrived during the Passover season, and we had our first Passover in this building at the back here, and we called it Gilgal because that's where they had the first Passover when they crossed the Jordan. And Gilgal means a wheel, it's in motion, just to say, okay, we are starting this process of possessing this land in faith. We have no idea what we're doing, but in faith, we're celebrating Passover and we're calling this place Gilgal. And Father, you show us how to possess this land for your purposes.
We also, just out of the blue, had a couple arrive out of the United States who were very spiritually tuned in regarding spiritual warfare matters. And they also were instrumental in teaching us and showing us what needs to be done here to cleanse this place spiritually. And in the process of many months, we actually destroyed 3 dwellings here, which had to be destroyed because of the evil that it portrayed with cultic signs and their sacrifices and so forth and so on. Breaking down buildings, burning another hut. But that was all part of cleansing, spiritually cleansing eingedi. And amazing how so often many guests arrive here who've been here before. And they drive through Jaffa Gate and they just say, wow, we've sensed something different here. What has changed? And so we can then just get into discussions with them as to what Abba has done to us and to this place. And that has then also affected them in a positive way.
Part of our journey here has been, Father, how do we live out your ancient paths in an accommodation establishment where weekends is the main business time? And he slowly taught us how to include the Shabbat and all that. And we celebrate the feasts. We keep the biblical holidays. So our staff already know you get the biblical holidays as days off. It's a completely different kind of way of thinking and culture, the kingdom. And to be able to live it out in our everyday life is just the Father's kingdom. It's so life-giving. And it's such a blessing to be able to live it out in our everyday life. here on eingedi. And obviously the feasts we always celebrate, like the Sukkot. And we were over 40 people. And it was just such a blessing to have everyone here. That was just, it was like Father said, look, that which I asked you to do 8 years ago, look, it's happening. And that brought us great joy.
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing that we've experienced here is that how many lives have been changed, where there's just been an amazing turnaround in certain people's lives, and where we've just seen how they've grown spiritually and how Father's worked in their lives and how they've just committed their ways to Abba. So that's been a beautiful and lovely experience, especially young folk. We've had quite a few young folk who have helped us here on the farm, getting stuck into daily activities as we do. We work with them, they work with us, we chat, we talk, we live our lives as we always do. It's just good to be able to work with some young folk, imparting spiritual truths into their lives. The Father's done some wonderful work in many people. So we're just thankful for that.
And we never know who Father's going to send. And for us to just have an open door, to just love them, to just make them feel welcome, to serve them a good meal and to make them comfortable. It is just a way of reaching out. And then they start asking questions. Why is there a prayer shawl there? Why is there menorah? What are you all about? Why is the name of this cottage this, etc., etc. So Father opens doors for us. But I think the bottom line he's teaching us is just love the broken people out there.
I have a question. I'm very interested at the moment about the topic of being sent. Like, you guys were sent from Maritzburg to Ladybrook, and first you were equipped. How did both of you know that this is what Father wants? How much of it is he has to open a massive door? And how much of it is he gives you the desire of your heart so you can act and he will make your path straight if it's his will? Because this is clearly Father's will. And he equipped you guys, and he also sent people to help you to cleanse the place. Yeah. So what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think important. One has to take a calling seriously, and the calling to be sent to the Free State, for me, was a very difficult one. Father had to do some serious work with me before I realized this is his will. As I said earlier, I had a stable job. I knew where our next month's salary was coming from. We were secure and we were well known in the area and we had influence. Until Father really met business with us. And I had to really humble myself and seek him in this decision. It was the most difficult decision I've made in my life. Being the breadwinner, going into a foreign country, so to speak, starting from scratch at a good young age of 55. It wasn't easy. We certainly realized that there were going to be challenges, not realizing that there were going to be such huge challenges. But when Father speaks, we need to hear, we need to listen, and then we need to obey. And that was a very important aspect of us coming here, is we heard him. This is what he wants of us to do. We didn't have all the details. Many things were done in faith. And as I said earlier also, Father is faithful. That when he sees we do things in faith, he comes through. So as difficult as it was, and as difficult as it still sometimes is in this environment, a biggish farm with animals and livestock and game and all those kind of things, I believe that calling wasn't just to become farmers, to get out of the city, but also to really commit ourselves to the calling that he has upon our lives, to create a place like eingedi, a place of living water.
At one stage, we were in Maritzburg. We had a lot of broken families come into our home. And the one night, I could probably have taken 6 families into our home in Pietermaritzburg. And I just went to the passage and I said, Father, we need a farm. Then Werner thought this was just a big joke. Farm, we're not going to move to a farm. We're staying right there where we are. And then our 3 sons started to quite enjoy that idea that we would move to a farm. And we started looking at options. What would it be like to live on a farm? And Werner would just go, dream on. That's not going to happen. And then I would not speak to him about it at all. I just prayed. I said, Father,
do I work and my husband?
I just said to him, Father, you know how since a little girl, I grew up on a farm and then we moved to a little village. And from that time, I always said, I'm going to move back to a farm. I'm going to marry a farmer and I want to live on a farm and do everything myself since I was a little girl. And now I was almost a grandmother by then. And so the one day we were walking on the beach and I said to Werner, just tell me really, what do you really think about this desire to go and live on a farm? And he said, I think it's right. I nearly fainted on the sand there because I had said to Father, I'm willing to go, but you know what the stumbling block is, and I'm not going to nag him. You will have to do a work in his heart. And there he admitted that he too felt, and this was months later, that it was the right thing, but I didn't nag him at all. Father had done a work. I was just fasting and praying, going, Father, here is this desire, and I feel this is what needs to happen, but you guide us. And then he started working with us in different little ways to just confirm it. Do you want to share about the luri?
Yeah. In this desperate state of wanting to know, Father, is this the right thing? Is this really the right? The one morning I got out of bed, sat on the veranda, and I said, Father, if a luri sounds in the tree somewhere in the area, purple crested luri, make a beautiful sound. If it sounds now, this is the right thing. I will have peace with it and I can do what you ask me to do. And lo and behold, it wasn't half a minute later. The luri sat in the tree next to the veranda and started making its beautiful sounds. And it was just one of the little confirmations of, yes, this is what I need to do. This is what we need to do.
And then we would go for a walk. And it was a piece of open land where sometimes cars park. And there would be an FS car standing there in Pietermaritzburg. Yes, no, man, we stay together. He would just confirm it like that. And then we'd go for a walk. And we'd meet people, Italian people, that often went for walks. And this guy would see us walking with our Labrador and he'd go, do you know what that means in Italian, Labrador? It means farmer. Goodness. Farmer, there's the FS things, there's the luri. But obviously when we were praying, fasting as well, he gave us many scriptures that just made us realize he's moving us. And he's moving us out of the city into a land that he's going to choose to take us to. And he gave us scriptures like Deuteronomy 28, all the blessing and curses. And he says, if you're going to walk according to my path, this is what I will do to you and for you. And he slowly equipped us and built our faith and made us realize we are in his will and he's going ahead of us and he's going to choose a place for us. And it will be the right place that he's chosen. It's not up to us to choose. And he chose us in quite an interesting way, because you had looked for property.
I obviously was looking for property closer to home, not as far away from where home was, our children and family and so forth. But yeah, the door opened and I came across this place on the internet. And I just realized, hang on, we need to look at this property. And
it was the second time you'd seen it.
It was the second time I'd seen it. And the first time, obviously, I must have just glanced over it. But the second time, it made quite an impression. We then made an appointment and we came to view. It didn't look great. It had been extremely run down. The previous owners hadn't done much maintenance. So another challenge was to try and get the infrastructure back to a state and a condition where it was acceptable for guests. Many of the things that had broken were just neglected and ignored. So a lot of refurbishment and maintenance had to be done. Electrical, plumbing, building, you name it, we had to do. Fixing fences, fixing roads, fixing fences, especially to keep the game in the property and not visiting the farmer's property, the neighbor's property. It was a huge challenge in that respect. But
Father gave us a supernatural love for this place. it was so run down. And my father and mother came along. I asked them to please come with us, just to also hear. My father had been a farmer. I kept on saying to him, Papa, what do you think? He says, sure, this is a lot of work, but there's a lot of potential. And I just knew in my spirit, I had such a love and a peace that I knew this is the place that Father's chosen, and that He will help us to get it into a condition that would be acceptable again. But we realized it was going to be hard work. But we also, when we came here the first time, we knew this is it because of the work He'd done with us in the background already through scriptures. And obviously we asked our friends and really very meaningful people in our lives to pray with us. And they gave us confirmation and things like that. So we didn't just do it lightly. It was a lot of soul searching and a lot of just seeking Father's heart and realizing this is really what He wants us to do. And then in confidence with that, knowing you've sent us, Father, so you will never ask us to do more than we can be. And you will never leave us and not forsake it, because often I felt I'm throwing in the towel. I'm giving up. I can't do this anymore. And then going back to, but Father, you chose it. So it must be the right thing. And you will not lay on more than I can bear. And you will help me to get through it. And He has.
Praise Father, by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony, they'll overcome. How long did you guys wait? How long was that pressing in from the start of, from that seed of an idea of a farm until it coming to fruition?
Okay. September 2014, probably around the fall feast time, I think. It was round about that time in 2014. And then in 2015, that entire year, Father took us on a journey. Werner was so sick. I had to nurse him. Then I got so sick, he had to nurse me. And in that time, what was quite amazing for us, when he was so ill, I would just sit there with him because I couldn't leave him alone. He was so sick. I mean, he was 54 years old and he got so ill, but we knew Father was working a work on him. And during that time, I would just sit. And in 1 week, we read through the Torah from Genesis to Deuteronomy in 1 week.
Right.
And then when I got so sick, we did it again because now he had to nurse me. We just read the Torah again in a week. So that year we read through the Torah twice in 1 week sessions. And in that time, Father imparted a lot of things into our lives. Werner resigned in June 2015. And then in that November of 2015, we saw this place.
So for a 5-month period, I was not employed, waiting on Father to show us what His plan is. So He doesn't always reveal things instantly.
Yeah.
It's not in our time, but it's in His time. And so it does require some patience. But I think I just need to say it's not us that we haven't done this. Father's done it. And we give Him the glory. We don't take any glory for what eingedi is, but give Him the glory and honor.
Yeah. And I think it's important not to just rush into things and think, oh, this is a good idea. Really press into Father. And I remember one friend of mine who we also asked to pray. She said she got 2 old ladies that she knew to pray with her for us. And these 2 old ladies said to her, have they been through a school of preparation? If this is of Father, He will put them through a school of preparation. He will put them through hardship to train them up. And not long after that, we then got our issue and we realized, okay, well, Father, if this is of you, you are training us up now and preparing us and making and opening our ears and eyes, spiritual eyes and ears, and making us trust you more to get us through this and to prepare us for what you want us to do. Because it was, I can be quite honest, as a mother and as a woman, it was quite traumatic for me to leave my entire life. I'd lived my entire life in the Natal Midlands. I grew up in a German community where everyone knows everyone. My children were there. My first little grandchild had just been born. And now we've got to uproot from all this and move to a completely different culture. And the Free State is like a different country. to Natal. Natal is like English, and we had our German community, and now here it's all basically Afrikaans. It's just so different. But Father also is amazing, because since a little girl, I've had an incredible love for the Afrikaans people, and I've always loved the Afrikaans language and everything. So now he was bringing me here, and it was not, I never want to go to the Free State. It was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. But Father, please just let there be a mountain somewhere. But it was traumatic to be uprooted like that and placed into a completely new land. But if you know that Father's done it, you are able to start blooming again because he's planted you. But if you just do it because you think it's your own good idea, you will probably wilt there and just be taken back to where you come from. It's like we started a new book of our life, not just a new chapter. It was a completely new book of our life. And Father had to cut and prune everything from that season before he could transplant us. And it was a hard year, that year before we moved. There was a lot of pruning that he was doing.
Yeah, and you guys were found working. You worked in Pietermaritzburg. You helped broken families. You warred in the spirit, all these things. You were home educating your children, all that. It wasn't like you were just sitting around doing nothing and then here Father takes you. You were found working when this came into your heart and all that.
I think the other thing that Father impressed on us hugely, he said, I want you to live the Acts pattern here on eingedi. He's got that pattern where he said to the disciples before he ascended into heaven, I want you to be witnesses in Jerusalem and Samaria and beyond, Judah and beyond Judah, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And so if you're faithful in your home and you start reaching into the community, because we started doing prayer walking and everything in our community, then he will go, okay, I'm going to take you a step further now. As you say, don't just sit back and do nothing to extend his kingdom. Wherever you are, just extend his kingdom. Whether you're in a city or wherever, just reach out to the people around you. And then he will go, okay, I think I can move you on now. You can now move out of Jerusalem to Samaria or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your favorite memory from eingedi?
Yeah, there probably are so many. It's just something that comes to mind when we first arrived, the desolation. There was hardly any grass. There was hardly any greenery. And just how Father has blessed this land in so many ways. There is now cattle on the land. The game numbers have increased. It's green. The vegetation has virtually changed. Not overnight, but from what it was then to what it is now. It's just so beautiful to see Father's creation blooming. And that really does impress me.
One of my favorite stories for myself, and it was to me an incredible testimony of Yahweh as a father first. He cares for his children and he loves his children and he will really not lay on more than we can bear. And if we go through hardship, he will strengthen and comfort us in the most incredible ways. So what had happened when we arrived here, all the thatch roofs were leaking. And it was such a drama to try and get these thatch roofs to a condition that they didn't leak. We eventually have replaced them now with Harvey tiles. But it was quite traumatic, this roof project. And so we get someone in to fix it from Bloemfontein. And next time it rains, oh gosh, there it's leaking again. We got to move everything out of the houses, and that thatch roof needs to be redone. Anyway, the one day I had more than I could actually bear. I just couldn't bear the thought of another thatch roof, and I ran across to the other side of the yard there in one of the thatch roof houses, and I just sobbed because I thought if I could be too close here, I have to have a big cry. So I hid myself in that room there, but the dogs heard me and they were here with Werner and they were getting very worked up. So Werner was like, what's going on? So they took him to where I was and I was laying on the floor crying and sobbing. And he said, what's the matter? I said, no, please just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. He says, don't you want to lie down on the bed? I said, if I've got to look at another thatch roof from my bed, I will scream. Just leave me alone. I need to just recover from these thatch roofs. Anyway, so he went back and he got me some chocolate just to calm me down. And I just sat outside. I sat there next to a little blowbossy and I was just sobbing and sobbing. It was just like, I cannot do this. This is too much. The next thing, I hear something here behind me and I look and there's an ostrich standing. She was tame, walking around here. We had called her Dorcas because of her character. And I said to her, Dorcas, today, you've got to be like Balaam's donkey. You've got to speak to me today because I've had enough. I'm leaving. This bird sat down here next to me in the bushes. And I just put my head on her shoulder and I just cried and I cried. And I just told her my story, how I was feeling. And then she started picking at my shoes. And she stood up. And I said, I know you want me to get up, but I'm not getting up. I'm staying right here. I'm not going anywhere. So she sat down again and she just picked at my shoelaces and she stood up again. And eventually I thought, okay, let me get up. And I just said, okay, thank you, Dorcas. At least I got up. I'm just going to go for a little walk now in the bushes here just to get away from these roofs. And you know what? This ostrich walked with me. When I sat, she sat. When I stood, she stood. Sometimes she would just sit down in the dust as if to say, okay, come sit down, have another good cry. And I would just cry on her shoulder. She walked with me for about 3 kilometers. There we walked right round the farm back to here. And when we got back on the yard, she walked off as if to say, okay, you're right now. Get on with it. It was the most incredible experience I had with an animal ever. And since that day, whenever I was feeling really overwhelmed, this ostrich would be close by and I would go and sit next to her and cry. She would follow me around the houses and knock on the window when I was working in the chalets, and she would lay an egg for me outside. And she'd call me and she's laid an egg for me. It was the most incredible experience. One of the just sweetest things I've ever experienced, this ostrich just comforting me.
Wow. What a story. I wasn't expecting that. Anything like that at all.
That's why we've got Dorcas Walk here that goes to Shamar Dam. It actually follows the path that her and I walked. So it's a very special walk.
Ah.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm so sad, disappointed in myself that I only went to it's Gilead Garden, right? That I only went there the day when we left because we walked up to Shamar Dam and we sat there and we worshipped a little bit. And then we sat in that garden on the way back. And I thought, man, if I had known what a blessing it is to sit here in these trees, and
yes,
I'll have to go again. Tell me a little bit more about what do people need to know if they come to you guys? I want to tell the people who are listening, they have chalets, they have camping ground with great new ablutions. You guys have that mirror in your ablutions that make you look so much skinnier than you really are, which I love. I love that mirror.
Isn't it?
And it's appropriately placed in the ladies.
Yeah. So, yeah. And it's in mountains and there are many places where you can just go for a walk like to the Shamar Dam, or you can just go to the game. There are coffee trees where you can sit under the trees. It is a bit of a walk for me. Like I'm a little lazy to do that walk. But for people who aren't as lazy as I am in terms of walking, that might be a great excursion. How far is it to the nearest coffee tree in time?
You can either walk or drive there.
Yeah, there's you can either walk up the standard route where the 4x4 travels, or you can take one of the official hikes, which take you past some of the coffee trees. The longer hike, which we call the day one hike, the Eland hike, is about 12 kilometers, where you traverse the mountains, you get onto the plains, past Springbok Floctus and Game Lookout Point, where you actually just hike amongst the game, mainly plains game. But then you can also just do any casual walk, or you can drive up straight 4x4 up the mountain, or you can go around the farm, which is quite a distance. So you travel about 6-7 kilometers, and you get into the back of the farm where you can go with a normal 2x4 vehicle, and then travel another few k's to the coffee trees if you'd like to have
you take your
coffee, take your flask and a couple of biscuits,
picnic,
and sit under the tree and just watch the game in the plains. Yeah, there are those activities, walks and hikes. From the accommodation point of view, there are 11 chalets. The smallest one takes 3 guests. The biggest one is a hostel type accommodation, which takes 11 guests. Some are houthuisies, wooden cottages. Others are brick houses. So there's a variety of things to do, from fishing to a bit of boating, swimming to swimming pools, a big 2.1 meter deep pool and a splash pool for the children. Lovely playground for the children with swings and roundabouts and jungle gym. We've just put up a trampoline. And then there's a camping area with Sukkot. We had about 8 families camping there. It can take a few more. And the ablutions that we did build 2 years ago can accommodate more than that. So we can comfortably say that you probably can camp 50 people. Plus you could probably accommodate 50 in the chalets. That's the size of the infrastructure. Then there's a dining hall and there's a conference room. We do game drives as well, 4x4 or 2x4. And then, yes, in season, we do our hunting as well. What we also try and do is we try and just live off the land as best we can. We always nearly toss a coin as to who has to go to town to go and do the town chores once every 2 weeks or so. But yeah, we try and live off the land. We've got a huge vegetable garden, non-GMO seeds or heirloom seeds we use. We don't use herbicides or pesticides on the animals, nor obviously on the vegetables, on the plants. We have a herd of cattle, we have a herd of sheep, chickens and ducks and geese. So that's all good food, good healthy food. There's the milk cows. Those milk cows, especially in summer, a lot of cream. So she makes her own, you can maybe explain, own butters and cheeses and
preserve the vegetable and fruit that comes from the gardens. We keep busy.
I must say, when we were there, when we were checking out, I had to get some of your preserves. And I got kasundi and I got piccalilli because I've been meaning to get piccalilli forever. And then my sister got the pepperdew chutney and something else. Oh, the gooseberry jam, which we found out my grandfather loves gooseberry jam. So we had an Erev Shabbat at my sister. And we put some butter on the challah with kasundi and piccalilli, which is a winner. And my grandfather was so happy to have some gooseberry jam. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So, if somebody would like to visit you guys, how can they get in touch with you?
Okay, we're situated between Ladybrand and Hobhouse, halfway between Ladybrand and Hobhouse on the R26. There's about a 2.5 kilometer dirt road section, which takes you to the venue. You can contact us either directly on the phone, which we have still a landline number via satellite. We unfortunately don't have any South African cell phone coverage. So we have satellite coverage here with Wi-Fi. So yes, either the landline number of 051 924 5831 or a WhatsApp.
Best is WhatsApp.
This is a better option, 083 956 1825, or our Gmail address, eingedi, eingedi.fs, FS for Free State.
And then we are getting our website up and running now. So people will be able to book through our website, which is just eingedi.co.za. But that will probably be, hopefully by the end of the year, we will have our website and booking system set up for that. But in the meantime, the WhatsApp is actually the easiest, and then we communicate from there on email.
I'll put all this in the description as well, so for ease of reference and so forth. Thank you so much for your time. It was so great to talk to you. It's always so wonderful to see you. We met you guys in 2020, and then we did a young people camp by you guys, and then Sukkot and everything. So I'm very excited for what is to come. I'm very excited for what Father is going to do with eingedi in the future, and my Father bless you abundantly, and also the people,
Thank you.
and may He bless the seed that you sow and the seed that you water with the people who come and visit. With Sukkot, there was a lady, wonderful couple that we met who just, they were driving past Tengedi, and the lady just felt, no, they need to rest now. And they had a caravan, so they just parked there. And then Noleen and them just lived, shining the light. They said, tomorrow it's Shabbat. We're not going to see you, but may you go in peace. And with that, now they're keeping Shabbat. They came to Sukkot, and I'm so excited for how much they're about to learn. And I told them too, I'm so excited for what you're going to learn about Scripture and about Father. What a wonderful time awaits you. So my Father, bless the work of your hand, especially also with what you're doing in the kingdom. Shalom.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thanks, Andrea.
Blessings to you as
Shalom.
well.